Hey everybody, this is Corey, the co-founder of the Reagan Conservatives Against Trump Facebook group, co-founder with David Cholesterol, known to you as DC. Um, I just, be honest with you, I have a few things I want to get off my chest, and rather than um, write them down, I'd prefer just to talk, and I hope you don't mind. And I'm sorry for the picture, the one picture you see on the video. It's not really a video, it's just to get it on YouTube. That's actually my Facebook profile picture, and ironically, it actually serves to the point that I'm going to make in this audio blog here. That's actually me standing next to Governor Scott of Florida, accepting a service award. The interesting thing about that is it was a service award that I got in 2013. It was at the Florida Federation of Young Republicans annual convention in Orlando, and it was hosted by my good friend Eric, who was at the time was president of the Orange County Young Republicans, and I was president of the Volusia County Young Republicans, and I actually took that pretty seriously back then. And little funny side note, I was totally underdressed for that event. I usually on these quarterlies and annuals, the first night is really just to get reacquainted with everybody, because you see them so rarely. It's nice to see friendly faces that you normally see, because it's usually the same people that are on the boards of these county clubs all around the state. And I showed up, untucked shirt, button up, just not really a dress shirt, and in khakis, and everybody else is basically dressed like a lawyer in court. And it was like a ballroom in the side ballroom or whatever in a fancy hotel in downtown Orlando. And I walk in there, it's like, wow, I'm very underdressed. But, for some reason, I kind of enjoyed that. I kind of enjoyed standing out a little bit. But, it was kind of neat to have the governor to, say your name out loud in front of everybody as you're accepting an award. And I genuinely like the governor. I think he's done a good job. He's too much of a Trumper for me now, but I think he's done a good job as governor. So it's hard to overlook some things, but, we'll see what happens as he runs for Senate against Bill Nelson. That's neither here nor there. I'm sorry, I'll get back on point. Trumper actually he inspired me to do this today because he messaged me, and instead of messaging me like an adult, he decided to be a prick. So okay, I've had a lot of thoughts. I've been talking to DC for a while now, and DC is one of my best friends. If you don't know, we live in the same city. And we go to movies, we talk for hours on the phone, we do all kinds of stuff, hang out, and we pretty much agree politically 90 to 95% of the time. And even if we disagree, it's never a matter of what a dumb opinion he had. No, I respect his opinion dearly. And I was talking to him, I said, I'm going to start an audio blog at some point. I just got to organize my thoughts. And when that Trumper messaged me today, I thought, you know what, now I'm going to get this down on and record it, because it just inspired me, and it created so many thoughts in my head. And I really want to start really kind of from the beginning a little bit here. Is there was one time, I was as I just told you, I was very involved. I was part of a local party chapter, a local Republican party in my county, and there was one time that I was listened to, and now that I look back on that, it's really a pivotal point, because it really expressed why I joined the party in the first place. They were going to create a leaflet to mail to people, mailers, and for potential voters about why the Republican Party was right for them. And they included a section on it that said what Republicans believe versus what Democrats believe. And the Democrat portion was more of an interpretation of what Democrats believed, as said by an angry old Republican. It read like an angry old man had written it. It was nasty. And whether you want to argue if it was true or not is pretty irrelevant to the new voter who may consider the Republican Party. So I emailed them when they sent out the copies that weren't yet printed, but they sent out what they're going to look like. And I told them, it's way too negative. Why don't you just put what Republicans believe on there? And they actually did that. They actually listened to me, and they actually showed me like a month later or whatever, hey, we decided to go with the positive view. I was like, okay, great. But I realized, thinking on it today, that's exactly why I joined the party at age 21 in the first place. It's because I believed in something. I believed in conservatism more than anything, but I didn't believe in a person or even a group of people. And I didn't join the party out of fear of the Democrats. And I didn't just register when I joined either. I literally volunteered. And most of the time without pay, in thankless positions to help get Republicans elected, either locally, state, or federal. I went door to door for years, did phone banking as an only child. who is a massive introvert, and I'm extremely shy. It took some serious time for me to get over my inner demons to actually do these things. But that's how much I believed in the party as a vehicle for conservatism. And how much I decided I'm going to overcome some of these things that are, a hindrance to me. And some people it comes naturally, they love it. To me, when I go door to door, when I first started, I would literally hope the person wasn't home so I could just put a mail or a card or placard in the door somehow and just leave. But, sometimes they answer the door, you actually have to talk to them. And it was a lot of things for me to learn and overcome. And the first year I did it, I probably wasn't very good, but then I actually got pretty good at it later on. And phone banking is even worse. I hate phone banking, but still, there were times that you didn't really feel like walking, 5 to 10 miles. So you decided, okay, I'm going to just make some phone calls, and because it's something you're passionate about. But, DC, as I just talked about, he is the same way. He did it differently, but he believes in a cause. We like I said, we've been good friends for like 11 years. But in 2012, let me give you this example. We had stopped talking to each other for a while. We were good friends. We're very good friends. We had stopped talking for a while because we backed different candidates in 2012. He was a Gingrich guy and I was a Romney guy. And go ahead, insert joke about Rhino, whatever. I don't care. Gingrich was my number 2 guy, but for what it's worth. But for a while it was fine because they weren't rivals at just yet. But once they did become rivals, the 2 voter bases just hated each other for a time, and that's normal. And DC and I really had to stop talking because it got so bad. DC had been a believer in Gingrich for almost 20 years by that time, and so it was no surprise that he supported him. Even though we were at odds, I actually respected that. And he came to he really disliked Romney because the money behind Romney was attacking Gingrich pretty hardcore by that point. And I can understand why a Gingrich supporter would come to dislike Romney quite a bit. But that all being said, the first day of early voting in the general election when Romney was the nominee, DC was there even before me. And let me remind you, I'm a guy who was walking door to door for Romney, doing some phone banking for Romney. I think I took part in some fundraisers trying to raise money for Romney. If I remember correctly, this is 6 years ago. You have to bear with me. But he was there before even I was. And when the polls opened at 7 a.m. for early voting, first day of early voting, in fact, and he went there to go vote for Romney. And he saw me in line. He actually pointed to me and recognized me. And side note, he would have said, hey, or we would have talked a little bit. But, I think by the whoever was controlling the poll pretty much ordered everybody to be quiet. So that's how much he believes in the cause. He voted for the biggest rival of a man he supported for 20 years because he didn't believe in third parties. He still believed in GOP was a better option. And he was there because he believed in something, not someone, if that makes sense to you. So fast forward to 2016, right? And Trump wins the primary, and we're both done with the party. Part of that is because of Trump. That's obvious. But I've also come to believe that part of the conclusion is that the party also no longer believes in anything. They just believe in Trump. And that's probably the biggest difference with the boldest colors. That's the difference with the boldest colors between Reagan and Trump, is that Reagan and his supporters tried to make ideas the foundation for the party going forward. Now it's just Trump 24/7. He's a catalyst for everything, and that's sad beyond words. It's all Trump, 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 Trump. Just to give you a small example, the chairman of my local county party, when he was at one of those quarterlies for the state party, and they asked for a roll call for all county chairmen, he didn't answer with here, he answered with Trump really loud. Yeah, that's my county, and you start to see again why I decided to leave the party. I told you those long, boring stories to get to this point. Today, a Trumper, as I said earlier, whom I've known for years, from my days of volunteering. He's been a friend for a long time, and it's not that he's never done anything nice for me or been a good friend in times, but he messaged me just to bash Rubio. That's the guy I supported in the primary. Even though I haven't even brought up Rubio to him in maybe 2 years. I don't talk about Rubio to him, or really talk about Rubio that much in general. He just messages me about Rubio's tax law comments, and that were grossly taken out of context. And he's just bashing him because he wants to get a rise out of me. Again, he's just messaging me to be a prick. And quite frankly, it's in the middle of a work day. I just don't need this. Now, I could just ignore it, but it happens a lot, unfortunately. And it's not like I can just block him from Facebook when we've been friends for many, many years. So it's a little bit harder than just, goodbye, whatever. But the original article, just for context purposes, stated that Rubio didn't like the tax cuts. And several articles in his defense have been posted since stating that he is taken way out of context. Rubio himself even responded, the typical knee-jerk reaction from a Trumper. Especially from a Trumper who, can never find anything wrong with anything Trump does or says. So we stopped talking, and something occurred to me. I didn't think about it. I'm not going to write it to him, but this thought became the inspiration for me to make an audio blog today. We stopped talking, and something occurred to me. Why is it just automatically believed about any other Republican when they see an article come out about that Republican from Politico or Washington Post? These are publications normally deemed to be fake news by Trumplicans. If this were about Trump, a Trump supporter would call it fake news immediately. I've been in situations where I've shown Trump's own words, actions, or proposals to these Trumpers in the past, and it was called fake news every single time. Even when I screenshot his own tweets to prove a point, the response to me using his own words was Trumpers telling me that I'm falling for the liberal media narrative. I kid you not, I use his own tweets, and it's somehow the liberal media narrative. I'm not even exaggerating. Those are just the exact words that were said to me. And I use Rubio as an example, but this idea can be applied to all GOP politicians. And the example that I think of that's best is probably the Ryan McConnell Trump healthcare bill. And this is the funniest part, is that when the healthcare bill came down the pike, and I didn't like it, and most people didn't like it, some Republicans loved it because it was something, just something to pass. After 7 years of campaigning on the idea that you're going to repeal Obamacare as soon as you got the presidency, the White House, or the House and the Senate, and then you don't do that, that's a little upsetting. You can't campaign one way for 7 years without saying, oh, by the way, if we don't get super majorities, we can't do certain things. I don't remember even that coming up once. But anyway, going back to the healthcare bill, it was very clear Trump was a heavy supporter of it. And even supporters of Trump would somehow come to me and say, hey, it looks like Trump's more on par with the Freedom Caucus plan. Freedom Caucus had put out a competing plan, and that was completely untrue. In fact, what I did was I screenshotted Trump's tweets threatening to primary the Freedom Caucus members for not supporting the Ryan bill. And I literally showed that to these people who were coming to me and say, hey, look, Trump's on board with the conservative idea. And I said, no, he's not. He's actually threatening them right now unless they support the plan that you claim you don't like. So what do they say to me? They respond to me again as I told you earlier, liberal media narrative. What about the one person specifically responded? What about the one congressman whose name I don't know on the show I don't watch, saying something different than what you're showing me, even though it was Trump's own words. It's just insane. That level of twisting and turning to justify somebody because you love them that much is frightening. It doesn't end there. I mean, how many Trump supporters I've come into are come across that they literally say Lion Ted, Little Marco, or they say the little catchphrases Trump. It's just amazing. It's like, can't you think for yourself? Are you literally using his catchphrases? I admire a lot of people. I admire the Buckleys of the world, the Reagans of the world, Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman, some of the great minds of our time, in my opinion at least. And I don't think I've ever just in casual conversation used their quotes or their catchphrases. It just doesn't make sense. It's a little creepy. I'm not saying that when you put up an inspirational quote for the day or something like that. I'm talking about in casual conversation, you're just using catchphrases of a person you like. That's just that's beyond creepy. That's invasion of the body snatchers creepy. And I ran across these people all the time. I actually ran across one person who actually literally, I was discussing how a wall's not going to happen. Trump's going to regress on immigration from the primary Trump. And, of course, that's what happened. And this person actually said the wall just got 10 feet taller because of me. I just started laughing. I was like, this is just nuts. These people need some serious help. But and then to finish off the healthcare story, this is the funniest part. When they finally conceded that Trump supported that stupid healthcare plan, you know what they said to me? Multiple people, mind you. They said, I got texts, I got calls, I got messages. saying, hey, at least he got something done. The party couldn't do it for 8 years. As if Obama in office has nothing to do with it, first of all. And second of all, you just claimed he didn't support the plan. Now you're bragging about it? What is wrong with you? You know, the GOP is certainly not perfect. They're far from perfect. And they certainly don't always meet my expectations. But, you know, there are things they did during the Obama years, such as, you know, keep $5 trillion out of his hands, an extra $5 trillion. They didn't cave on gun rights when the pressure was at an all-time high. I mean, literally, talk about the highest it's been. Sandy Hook was probably the highest I've ever seen it, and they did not cave on gun rights at the time. You know, they took Obama to court over some executive orders that were out of place. You know, they piecemealed Obamacare where they could. You know, such as taking away subsidized bailout money for insurance companies that couldn't keep up. You know, and they've done some things pretty well. They weren't perfect by any stretch of the imaginations, but they've done some things pretty well. You know, and I believe in giving praise, you know, when it's deserved, especially if you're going to be critical. I could be critical of the GOP. I can also say, hey, I think they did this right. And I would like to apply that to Trump, and I have in the past. You know, the first couple of months, I had casual optimism about Trump. Honestly, some of his appointments I kind of enjoyed. I still like the Mattis appointment. I think that's a good one. But you know, I know Trump supporters, if you happen to catch hold of this audio blog, you're wondering if I believe in giving praise. Why don't you praise Trump? Why don't you praise Trump? But the reason I don't anymore is it goes along with a point DC actually made to me once. There's 2 reasons why I don't anymore. You know, number one, I have 2 friends that are Trump supporters whom this doesn't apply to. But the rest I've come across, either friends or strangers, are complete idiots when I do praise a policy that comes from his administration. Rather than saying, yeah, I agree and I'm glad you see it that way, I think he's done a good job, they act like I'm still somehow the asshole because I didn't bathe in his flop sweat and kiss his feet the entire time. They then rip on anyone I might like, stating hypothetically that he or she would never have done anything correctly, blah, blah, blah. I mean, these people need to seriously read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Well, to be honest, first of all, they maybe just read a book, period, come to think of it. But number 2, no other Republican, this goes back to what I was saying, no other Republican, unless it is in support of Trump, gets the credit or benefit of the doubt the way Trump does from his supporters. It doesn't even matter if they're saying similar things. Trump said something every other week during the campaign that would normally torpedo any typical Republican campaign, but he got stronger instead. He literally said in a Republican debate and in a separate interview that he wanted a government-run healthcare system. He wanted government to pay for healthcare. And it didn't matter. I can't even imagine the hell any one of the other candidates would catch for that. So let me ask you, why should I say good job Trump on anything and feed this monster? And by monster, I mean the cult of personality, because it doesn't contribute to a base of ideas. It just contributes to that cult of personality. I mean, you heard my background with the party, so I believe me when I say I understand the urge by many on the right to defend Trump because of the R next to his name. He's a leader of the party with which you identify, and you feel that an attack on him is an attack on you. But when I see Republicans, you know, whom I know view Clinton as a scumbag for ironically the same things Trump does, they defend Trump relentlessly with arguments based on semantics. Like the Stormy Daniels thing, when they ask, is it a legal issue, that's so cold-heartedly ridiculous based on how you used to view Clinton. You know, I have no idea how this affects his presidency or if it would have cost him the presidency. I have no idea. But it doesn't change the fact that he's a serial adulterer that literally pays women to keep quiet about it. And if you can argue in defense of him for this because of what may or may not be quote unquote legally acceptable, then that's just on you because I can't do that. You know, what's worse is that's probably one of the least awful things he's done in his personal life. But I know, you didn't elect a pastor. But let me ask you something. Could you have at least elected a person who actually tries to be a decent human being and then maybe not, worship him? Because that doesn't make any sense. You know, the party really, in my opinion, the base of the party needs to start believing in ideas again rather than defending an incredibly flawed man. Don't lower your standards to justify said defense. Thanks for listening.